applicable and workable in the northern ghetto as it is in the south. Now, there's a larger job there. The frustrations at points are much deeper. The bitterness is deeper.
Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now. And I've seen.
We are all victims of the same system of oppression. And even though we may have different religious beliefs, this does not at all bring about a difference in terms of our constitution.
One day right now in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today.
What happens when a man stands up, says enough is enough?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Georgia Tech's 12th Annual Martin Luther King Student Celebration. My name is Jayla Williams, and I am currently the president of African American Student Union. It is an honor and a privilege to have the opportunity to kick off tonight's program celebrating the lifelong work of Dr. King. Tonight, we honor a man who dedicated his life to serving others. We celebrate a leader who made an entire nation listen to the silent cries, fears, and disparities of people oppressed and in bondage. We honor the legacy of Dr. King's work that extends far beyond his life. The theme for this year's celebration is the Beloved Community 2021, Bridging Communities During the Social Divide. The African American Student Union at Tech was founded in the wake of Dr. King's assassination and is striven to carry the ideals that this theme conveys. Through the efforts of the organization, through student activism, we have established programs dedicated to outreach and service, as well as communicated with administration in order to ensure representation and resources. These efforts have manifested themselves in the establishment of the Office of Minority Education and Development, now known as OMED, housed in the Chapin Building. Tonight, we look forward to passionate performances and speakers, and while I hope you're entertained, I challenge you to enjoy them all with intention. I challenge you all to really think about what Dr. King's dream means to you and how we can best relate it to the trials of today's society and more directly to life on this beautiful campus. I implore my fellow students to consider the impact of our collective voices and the change that we can all make in our various communities. Give thought to the power we have when we build coalitions and embark upon our missions as a unified body. To the faculty and staff, I challenge you to listen to the voices of students, especially those most underrepresented in the traditional avenues of outreach. Our institute prides itself on innovation, and we've even coined the term creating the next. Within that spirit, I ask you all to consider every aspect of student life and move with aim and with purpose to make sure that you provide ample opportunity and the physical space necessary to create a Georgia Tech that is not only technically diverse, but truly inclusive. The social divide of today may have set our country back to a time that we are not proud of, but the path is lit with past lessons learned, and the dream of Dr. King lives on in each and every one of us. Through our organizations and in our spirit, we have been entrusted to never be complacent, to always bridge our communities for the greater good of us all here at Georgia Tech. We come together stronger and better than before. Thank you to the MLK Student Board for planning and executing this event, and thank you to all of you that are speaking and performing. Lastly, thanks to you all for attending. Now it's my honor to introduce the MC for tonight's event. Please join me in welcoming Miss Georgia Tech, Sinat Adus.
Thank you, Jayla, and good evening, everyone. My name is Sina Adus, and I'm honored to host this special event tonight. In addition to the humility I feel in commemorating the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I feel distinctly reminiscent. It was on this stage during my first year at Tech where I initially stepped into advocacy-driven leadership. The following year, I had the privilege of organizing this event, providing my fellow visionary peers with the same platform I was so graciously given to share their own hopes for a more inclusive campus community. This was just before I headed off to DC to work for one of the last remaining civil rights icons who was directly inspired by Dr. King. And now, gratefully serving as Miss Georgia Tech, with a platform emphasizing the need for anti-racist education at our institute, it is quite a full circle moment. One that reminds me of the power of belief in one another, in the momentum we are all undeniably experiencing, and in a co-created future our ancestors would be proud of. With that in mind, I am elated to welcome you all to the stories and visions of our student speakers. In their sharing lies power. I urge you to listen for both Dr. King's world-changing legacy and for what new worlds you wish to help co-create. Each student in their application was judged on charisma, originality, and preparedness, and they will be speaking on the theme, The Beloved Community 2021, Bridging Communities During Social Divide. We will also get to enjoy student performances, including stepping from members of Dr. King's fraternity and dancing from our very own Gold Rush dance team. Our first performance comes from Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Dr. King joined this fraternity at Boston University in 1952 and was an active member in and outside of his college career, abiding by the principles of the organization in his leadership. Since its founding on April 2nd, 1977, the New Mu chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha here at Georgia Tech has striven for excellence through academic achievement, leadership development, service, and advocacy for their community, many of the ideals that Dr. King masterfully embodied. Without further ado, here to step for us tonight, please welcome the New Mu chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha.
Trapped in the sun, they great Ferraris sitting outside. When I said it made fun, I gave the plug to my I gave the game to my sons. Yellow Lambo outside, but when I trapped in the sun, they great Ferraris sitting outside. When I couldn't make fun, I gave the plug to my I gave the game to my son. You need to learn the rest of me. I put a 3 on the 1, like the plug to the socket of the dick. I get bored, I might give away a dick. Yellow Lambo outside, but when I trapped in the sun, green Ferrari sitting outside. He wanna be a superstar. I bought my magazine for his birthday, got him a clock on more than 17. I've been on Adderall, I've been on gasoline. Had some Haitian with me, they got the fucking beans. I did new registration, I did some new Celine. They line up at the Woo, Dr. acting like some microwave a pound. I never cut the lean. I got dope in my blood. This was for medicine. Need somebody in your drink to boost your self-esteem. I'm in a mirror every day, say things from Levi's jeans. He wanna be a superstar. I bought my magazine. I can't be a role model.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are the brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, the first intercollegiate Greek letter organization founded for men of African descent. We were founded on an ice cold Tuesday, December 4th, 1906, at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York. But today isn't about us. Today, we're here to celebrate the legacy of our brother, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Brother Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. spearheaded the nationwide effort to end legal segregation while working to enact laws such as the Civil Rights and the Voting Rights Acts. He became the youngest man at the age of 35 to be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for combating racial inequality through nonviolence.
He was the first African American and only U.S.-born citizen to be granted a national holiday. Martin Luther King Jr. Day was established in multiple cities and states starting in 1971, and it was enacted as a national holiday in 1986. He is a brother of the greatest fraternity, and I am proud to call him my brother. We are leaders, we are trailblazers, we are ice cold, and we are the greatest.
Hey, fight! Nice! Oh, 6! Brother Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. became a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated by way of the Sigma chapter at Boston University in 1952. And he has left an indelible mark on this fraternity ever since. His tenacity and determination has changed the lives of African Americans forever. He became the face of the civil rights movement from 1955 until his untimely murder in 1968. Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated continues to supply voice and vision for the struggles of people of color around the world. Alpha Phi Alpha also recognizes the need to combat educational, political, economic, and social injustices faced by people of color to this day.
Touch the mother hips, hands them down for my hips. What? Touch the mother hips, hands them down for my hips. What? Touch the mother hips, hands them down for my hips. Touch the mother hips, hands them down for my hips. What? Touch the mother hips, ride for my hips. I die for my hips. Touch the mother hips, man, I'm down with no limit. I ride for the guys on the street, on the thing with the big balls. And if anybody messes with you, dog it dog, I'ma be this. People put his name on a hustle and everywhere I go, I got Mr. Magic, yeah, because I still have that red stuff pouring out your head, flip any given time, flip make a move in the model that I live by. With me, them haters might run, but them haters can't hide. It's like, shoot yourself, it's a suicide. Exhale, got to be hitting hard like dirt boys, and to know you know them as big hurt, just like Soldier Slim, me a put you in the dirt. And you pick the arms from the t-shirt. When I make moves, I got 100 soldiers with me, just in case the haters out there trying to get me. All my players is down to squeeze the trigger, that's why I'm down for my no limit killer. Touch the money, hands them down for my hips. What? Touch the money, hands them down for my hips. What?
Hey,
Ride for my hips.
oh, 6! 1190006! The black, and old gold! My frat, it's so cold!
What a start to this event. Thank you, NUMU, for gifting us with such an invigorating performance. In keeping the energy high, we'll move into welcoming our first student speaker. Lauren Hester is a first-year student pursuing her BS in biology. Born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, Lauren graduated valedictorian of her high school class at the Coretta Scott King Young Women's Leadership Academy and was named a Regeneron Science Talent Scholar. Within her very first semester at Georgia Tech, she joined the Impact Living Learning community and established the Make It Right project. Through their tenacious efforts, Lauren and her team have begun assisting Georgia Tech's custodial staff in receiving higher wages and greater appreciation on campus. Here to debut her speech titled Together We Swarm, please give a hand for Lauren Hester.
We as a nation, no, actually, we as a people can all agree with Dr. King in that the ultimate measure of a man isn't where he stands in times of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in times of challenge and controversy. The year 2020 was riddled with a new challenge and controversy seemingly every month, from police brutality and political instability to the global pandemic that shook us all. 2020 definitely tested and challenged us all. 2020 was a roller coaster of a year for everyone. Regardless of your race, age, gender, education, or even political affiliation, 2020 definitely impacted us all. We were swept away from our comfort zones and just thrown into chaos. Not only was our strength put to the test, but our ability to adapt and accept change was as well. In 2020, we all were changed. Our lives were changed, and we were forced to adapt. And then, in this environment of forced change, we needed each other more than anything. And with the remnants of 2020 still lingering in our current year, we still need to be able to support one another so that we can finally bridge the gaps and the severed connections that have kept us from ultimate prosperity for so long. In order to do this, we all need to do our part. In order for us to reach ultimate prosperity and unification, we all need to do our part. Dr. King said it best when he asserted how whatever affects one directly affects another indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. This is the interrelated structure of reality. This is almost too true. Dr. King's message here essentially says that we cannot reach our fullest potential individually until we all are committed to achieving something higher. We must commit to growing together. We must commit to learning together. We must commit to struggling together. In order for us to break the norms that have suppressed underrepresented groups for so long, we need to first be able to accept that these norms exist so that we can strategically work to make our society more inclusive and socially unified. Now, you may be wondering, realistically, how can we do this? How can we change what has existed for so long? Well, to answer that, it starts with open and transparent conversation. It takes vulnerability. The vulnerability to hear that some of the things that you might agree with might not be the best or can be improved. It takes vulnerability to hear that you are wrong, but to grow from it. As Brené Brown once asserted, vulnerability isn't winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up and to be seen when you have absolutely no control over the outcome. Vulnerability isn't a weakness, but the best measure of courage. And along with vulnerability, it takes the willingness to shift your perspective, to view a situation from another's prism or lens, to have compassion for other people's narratives, and the strength to share your own. And when we finally do this, we will be able to bridge our communities together and share in our growth. We will be able to grow as a unit. So, to my fellow Yellow Jackets, let's devise these new mechanisms of unification to bring one another together. Let's rise up together to face the next opponents and challenges of our current year. Because together, we swarm. Thank you.
Wonderful job, Lauren. That was powerful. In lieu of our regular candle lighting ceremony, we asked student leaders to create short videos to answer the question, in light of the current social and political division, how is your organization bridging communities within Georgia Tech? These students leverage their leadership to manifest Dr. King's dream. They see the necessity of the challenging, uncomfortable work and face it with radical hope. 60 years after the historic matriculation of African American students at Georgia Tech, and some decades after landmark victories in the civil rights movement of Dr. King's era, our institute has an opportunity and responsibility to deliver on that radical hope. During these difficult times in our nation's history, we must collectively ensure that Georgia Tech is a home and an example for inclusivity.
Hello, we are the Nu Beta chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and we help bridge the beloved Georgia Tech community through
culture, history, and service to all mankind.
Hi, I'm Kyle Smith. I use he, him pronouns, and I serve as the Vice President for the Undergraduate Student Government Association. Here's how I'm using my role in SGA to help bridge communities across Georgia Tech. In SGA, I've worked with my peers to develop the Affinity Networks initiative, which does 3 things. It focuses specific attention on recruitment, community building, and resource sharing for underrepresented students in our organization. I hope that this initiative will help bridge communities across Georgia Tech and ensure that every student voice and every community is equitably represented in SGA.
We are the Executive Board of Hillel, your home for Jewish life on campus. This year, we've bridged communities at Georgia Tech by sharing our values, culture, and customs through various interfaith events with other student organizations, including panels, game nights, and a voter protection hotline.
Hello, my name is Brett Broughton, a Spring 20 initiate into the New Mu chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and today we're going to be talking about how we were able to bring together our community through the Wreck the Vote debate. During this time, we were able to take different voices and have them be listened to by their other political adversaries on campus, and with that, we're really happy and excited to see that event continue on to the next year. Thank you so much.
Hello, we are TSA.
TSA, the Transfer Student Association at Georgia Tech, and we build community by
encouraging student leadership and socialization.
By giving our members
a platform to conduct student-led workshops.
They can share ideas and teach others about topics they are passionate about.
One of our newest initiatives to bridge communities during this time has been to turn the Ramblin' Wreck into a bookmobile. We give out free books to all members of the Georgia Tech community.
This fall, we visited the Shepherd Center to celebrate fellow GT cheerleader Jordan McClinton's discharge. He was able to walk out of the Shepherd Center and had his first rec touch, an incredible milestone.
Lastly, we created a diversity and inclusion plan for our club. Our plan includes the creation of a chair position to oversee the execution of our plan and educating our members on implicit bias by having conversations about race.
Hey, my name is Caleb, and I'm a student leader in a Christian fellowship on campus called Chi Alpha. And here at Chi Alpha, we bridge communities through our life groups, which are small groups that meet weekly to discuss Christianity, current issues, and, well, life. We teach students to have these discussions in a way where the goal is not to win the argument, but to win the heart. This brings people with different views and backgrounds together to form diverse communities united by a kingdom mindset.
Hey guys, my name is Alana Simpson and I'm the current membership chair of the African American Student Union, also known as ASU.
Our organization is deeply founded and rooted in the struggles and victories our ancestors faced during the Civil Rights Movement. To continue their great works, we help bridge communities within Georgia Tech by following our 8 pillars: political awareness, economic empowerment, social awareness, coalition building, scholarship, community service, effective leadership, and self-cultural awareness.
Thank you to our student leaders. The hope you each embody inspires hope in each of us. Our next speaker, Cameron Laro, is a third-year aerospace engineering major originally from New York. He served as an athletic trainer for the Georgia Tech football team for 2 years, and he is currently in a Boeing mentorship program and is excited about conducting COVID airflow research this semester here at Tech. With his speech entitled Technology, the New Connection, let's give it up for Cameron Laro.
in a time of great separation, a time of great division, a time when many people are scared to leave their homes. Unity is important more now than ever. There's a social divide created due to racism and discrimination. The murder of George Floyd was only one of the many cases of racial injustice in this nation, and only one of the many reasons for the months of protests that ensued. Even an event as undeniably wrong as the murder of George Floyd or the murder of Breonna Taylor was met with excuses and ignorance. An issue like this should not be misunderstood, yet it was, and the divide was caused by this, as well as people's lack of willingness to understand. There is also a divide caused by a virus that has killed close to 400,000 people. We are forced to wear masks and prevented from seeing many of our loved ones. The usual events we look forward to, like the holidays and New Year's, seem to be but shadows of the former great gatherings they once were. I myself have only seen a handful of family members outside of a FaceTime call made to someone miles and miles away. But the same way technology connected people in previous times of hardship, it connects us now. We can use this technology, and we can connect with people in ways that the times of 2020 have not previously allowed us. We've adapted. We're doing virtual calls and meetings. People in the news call in from all over the country, all over the world, and people who would normally have to make a painstaking journey to a news headquarters can call in from the comfort of their homes and simply turn it off when they're done. Likewise, panels can be held all over the world and in one place at the same time. Model UN holds a panel talking about world issues in a way not possible before with many groups of people from all corners of the globe. Online classes have their shortcomings, but they also have their extreme benefits. Recorded lectures allow for material to be reviewed in a way beyond looking over your own notes. And asynchronous provides so much academic flexibility with your scheduling and time consumption. I believe using technology in this way is the key to our continued unity even after the threat of coronavirus passes. Martin Luther King championed the unity of all people. And what better way to unite than to use a device that can reach a person across the globe in an instant? These same devices educate us, inform us about the struggles faced by others and ways in which we can help. There are protests going on. There are many fighting for their rights as human beings. It only takes a few clicks to understand their stories. Simply look up a story and you find so many sources telling you what happened and why. And there are numerous fact-check websites to see if what you're reading is true or not. I'd even argue a version of free-form media like Twitter is a reliable source when waging a war on ignorance. It's easy to give into despair, to stop trying to connect and lock yourself away from the outside world. But I urge all to step outside of their physical and virtual comfort zone. Be bold. Take action. Spread the word. Share information about the struggles of others across all forms of social media. Take the time to learn and read about the issue before closing your heart and mind off to it. Try to actually understand the frustrations of others, because the story is never as simple as it seems. Thank you.
Wow, it is truly such an honor to receive the wisdom our speakers are just abundant with. Thank you, Cameron, for your exciting words. Shifting gears for a moment, our next performance will surely make you want to move. Gold Rush is the official dance team of Georgia Tech. These active Yellow Jackets can be found dancing on the sidelines at home football games and basketball games, making public appearances at community events, and competing at the D1A Jazz and Hip Hop divisions at the NDA College National Championship. Hailing from 13 states and representing 14 majors, the team consists of a diverse group of young athletes who enjoy dancing, fostering school spirit, and entertaining fans at Georgia Tech intercollegiate athletic events. The team's performances demonstrate a variety of styles, including jazz, pom, and hip-hop. Performing an original piece to I Have a Dream, let's welcome the official dance team of Georgia Tech, Gold Rush.
My dream is to be free.
In search of brighter days, I ride through the maze of the madness. Struggle is my address where pain and crack lives. Gunshots coming from sounds of blackness. Given this game with no time to practice. Born on a blacklist. Told I'm below average. A life with no cabbage. That's no money if you from where I'm from. Funny, I just want some of your son. Dark clouds seem to follow me. Alcohol that my pop swallowed bottle me. No apology, I walk with a boulder on my shoulder. It's a cold war, I'm a colder soldier. Hold the same fight that made Martin Luther the king. I ain't using it for the right thing. In between lean and the fiends, hustle and the schemes, I put together pieces of a dream. I still have one.
I got a dream. One day we gonna work it out. One day we gonna work it out. One day we gonna work it out. I have a dream. I got a dream. That one day. That one day. That one day. I'ma look deeper than myself. I gotta find a way. I have a dream.
Our last student speaker for tonight just graduated from Georgia Tech this past fall with a BS in electrical engineering, a minor in computer science, and is currently pursuing his PhD. He was the president of both the Street Dance Club Textiles and the Georgia Tech Baha'i Club. He has also been a part of the Yellow Jacket Fencing Club and Georgia Tech Symphony Orchestra. Currently, he is a member of Creation Global, an international dance crew and nonprofit, and is also a member of the Wilmette Institute Campus Initiative, a national project to elevate conversations about social change. He is also interested in the public perception of STEM and quantitative representation of community well-being. Giving his speech entitled A Proactive Pursuit, please give a round of applause for Justin Ting.
Good evening. There's a monthly event called Soul Food Cypher that takes place in Atlanta. A community of rappers and MCs gather together to improvise, rhyme, and tell stories. I was a freshman when I first heard about Soul Food Cypher. When I arrived, I quickly noticed how I was one of 3 non-Black participants in the venue. Atlanta's Black community makes up 52% of the city's population, so my minority status was not a surprise. I had a great time, not only because the event was fun and well organized, but also because the atmosphere was welcoming and positive, despite my status as a visitor and an outsider. The very next day, I attended my lectures in a classroom where many of my peers share my Asian background, and even more share my suburban upbringing. Needless to say, the demographics of the Georgia Tech Electrical Engineering Department are just a bit different from that of Atlanta's hip-hop community. I questioned whether or not the small number of Black, Latinx, and women engineers in our classrooms and faculty felt as welcomed as I did among the artists at Soul Food Cypher. And if they weren't, how responsible was I for making sure that they did? Now, why is this question important? On paper, students who are pushed hard enough through the course material can come out on the other side as rugged and competent individuals. This process appears to be independent of race, gender, or culture. But research from various fields tells us a different story. Joseph Heinrich, for example, a professor of human evolutionary biology at Harvard, finds that humans have evolved to be far better cooperative learners than individual. Joe Bowler, another relevant professor from Stanford who researches math education, finds that collaborative environments are not only effective, but they are also able to naturally take down race and gender barriers that typically exclude minorities in the education system. All of these academic studies remind me of what a friend told me when he transferred from Morehouse to Georgia Tech, where he said that Morehouse's more friendly atmosphere made learning just a bit easier. So to answer the question I posed earlier, yes, I am responsible for making my peers feel welcome, especially in a classroom environment where I easily fit in. As Martin Luther King puts it, all too many of those who live in affluent America ignore those who exist in poor America. In doing so, the affluent Americans will eventually have to face themselves with the question, how responsible am I for the well-being of my fellows? To ignore evil is to become an accomplice to it. If you spoke to my younger self from 5 or 6 years ago, I might have disagreed with this quote. But the truth I know now is that it is far too easy for many of us to ignore the prejudices and injustices that silently grow in our communities. The harmony among humans of different backgrounds can only manifest when a critical mass of people proactively pursue it. This proactive pursuit can take on many forms, but the bare minimum form it takes is talking about it. I've been fortunate enough to consistently practice hosting and participating in meaningful conversations through various events, both on and off campus, some casual and others formal. Last summer was a good time as any to extend that experience to more students of Georgia Tech, especially when the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and too many more were on our minds. While I prefer to talk about social justice in person, that was clearly not an option during the pandemic. So I had to experiment with what I could do online. I started by inviting as many people in student organizations into a Zoom call to address questions such as, is it hard to talk about race at Georgia Tech? Or what can we do better in the future? We recorded our observations and suggestions in the form of a Word document so we could share with even more people. Next, I began writing essays about the autobiography of Malcolm X on my social media. Not only does Malcolm X's story desperately need to be heard after being so unjustly ignored for too long, but there was enough content in the book to keep the conversation going for 6 months. While I cannot share with you every important conversation in my life, I can briefly share a few principles that I picked up along the way. First, social discourse takes regular practice. When I made social discourse a consistent part of my life, the conversation became much more manageable as I was digesting heavy ideas in small pieces over a long period of time. Second, you don't need to wait for institutions to set up meaningful conversations for you. Of course, it is good practice for large institutions to provide these spaces for students. But there is also a beauty to these well-informed conversations that come up organically in more casual settings. Third, these conversations will be uncomfortable, and that's okay. I've had to brace myself for many situations that would expose my own ignorance, but as long as I am prepared to learn from those experiences, I can accept that making mistakes is sometimes necessary for growth. Fourth, everyone has a role to play. Me being a human is enough justification to be involved in social justice, regardless of what my background may be. Diversity is not just a statistic that tells us if we have the right percentage of minorities. Diversity is a mindset that determines how you and I treat people of different backgrounds. Inclusion is not just the opposite of segregation. Inclusion is the ability to hold ourselves accountable so that our actions can reflect universal kindness and respect each and every day. Rather than passively being tolerant of one another, we can be actively unified in our efforts. Only then will we see real change. Change in the world and change at Georgia Tech. Thank you.
Excellent job, Justin. We're all grateful for your vulnerable words and calls to action. As we are reminded every year, Dr. King spent much of his life fighting, contesting so that the lives of the marginalized and alienated could taste liberation. His tenacious leadership, matched with the unseen support of the many young people and women behind the scenes, brought change and light to a once only imagined reality. However, we must remember the small ratio of a pre- and post-emancipated America. Every new hashtag and fresh calls to action shows us that the work toward a fully realized, accepting, and equitable future demands regular engagement from each of us. It's exciting work. We ought to lean into the excitement and be assured that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. With that, I want to thank each of you for tuning in tonight to this year's Martin Luther King Student Celebration. I hope you are all filled with as much radical hope as I am. We now would like to take the time out to recognize the efforts of those that have made tonight possible. Etienne Baptiste, Talia Tyson, Daniel Jacobs, Peyton Cleaver, Taraji Long, and Emma Rose Stern, the 2020-2021 MLK Student Board Chairs. And last but certainly not least, Angelique Laboy, our creative director and cinematographer. We would also like to thank the MLK Campus Committee, co-chaired by Dr. Archie Irvin and Dean Stephanie Ray. In addition, we would like to thank the Division of Student Life and Dean John Stein for your support. If you are interested in participating in other King-related events, there will be a book study focusing on John Meacham's new book about John Lewis, His Truth is Marching On. Students who would like to participate and need a book should contact Dean Ray. The MLK Sunday Supper, a community meal and conversation, will be January 26 at 7 p.m. The Georgia Tech community is invited to come together virtually over a meal to discuss the 2021 MLK celebration events, King's Legacy, and more. Contact Syracuse Barnes for more information. We would also like to thank all of our student speakers and performers for their participation, as well as the First Center for allowing us to use this venue, and a special thanks to SCPC for sharing this space with us. Lastly, we invite you all to participate in a reflection, perhaps the most important part of this program. After tonight's program, we want to engage you further by thinking about how Dr. King's dream has influenced you. We encourage all attendees to take a moment and share how they contribute to the beloved community on campus by making a story post on Instagram and tagging us at GTMLK Student Board for a feature. Once again, thank you for being here tonight, and we'll see you all next year.